Hello, thanks for watching, thanks for allowing me to talk a little bit about the history and legacy of the late and great Denis McQuail. And I'll talk about him in the context of the work we did on the new edition that just came out May 2020 of his seminal handbook, McQuail's Media Mass Communication Theory, the first iteration of which came out in 1969. So using a couple of different clips, I want to talk a little bit about the legacy of the field that Denis has left us and that may contribute to our discussions about the road ahead. And first of all, I'm sharing a clip that I made for our publisher Sage about the lessons learned and the changes made to this new 7th edition of his seminal handbook. Secondly, I want to go into a little bit more detail about what I've learned from working with Denis and on his book are the sort of continuing legacy points that he made for us as a field to come together and to truly make sense of our media environment. In conclusion, I want to talk about how the theories of media mass communication that Denis originally set out almost 40 or 50 years ago continue to make sense when we make sense of our collapsing, converging, complex, hybrid, networked media environment that we're all living in and with. I hope the video will be useful and I look forward to our discussions. McQuail's Media and Mass Communication Theory is an epic book. It's a book about books. It's a story of who we are as students and scholars of media and mass communication. It's about what we do, how we do it, and perhaps most importantly, why we study the media and mass communication, why we consider it so important, the role and the influence and the effects that media have on public opinion and on people's everyday lives. The new edition of McQuail's handbook is first and foremost an homage to his incredible legacy that he left us until his passing a couple of years ago. Working with Denis has been a tremendous privilege and it's been a lot of fun, especially thinking about how we try to adapt the book to the 21st century, to a new generation of students and scholars engaging with these materials. The changes we've made compared to previous editions are first and foremost a true integration of humanities and social science-based perspectives, approaches and methods to the study of media and mass communication. We've added the word media to the title to articulate the role, the significant role that media theory plays in the field today and to join communication science and media studies approaches. Secondly, we've addressed the realities of what it's like to make media professionally in the world today, in part because so many of the students in our courses, in media and communication types courses, are there because they want a career in these media, but also a true critical and an empirical understanding of the role that media play in everyday life comes from an appreciation of how media actually get made. A third intervention we made is to work hard to diversify the range of voices and sources in the book. In part, this has to do with making the book more a reflection of the truly global nature of our field. An acknowledgement that the industries that we're talking about are truly global industries. But also to include voices from literatures that are open access. And finally, we've tried to take the discussion on the influence and effects of media to a new level, rather than simply discussing the various theories and methods that we've used in the past as a field to study and interrogate the effects and influence of media. We've now looked at media effects as a canon, as a range of concerns that people have throughout history over and over again about the role that media play when it comes to children, to the young, to politics and our political system, to social cohesion and polarization. These are recurring concerns that we've now framed historically and pulled into the 21st century. What makes it really special to talk about Denis and his work at this particular moment in time is this surreal experience all of us are having of living through a pandemic and infodemic at the same time, where the worlds of our lives as lived in media cannot be separated anymore from the lives that we live outside, socially distanced or not. We truly have a unique opportunity of making sense of this, and our field can show its relevance to the discussions around the world as people live in media. So talking about the history and the legacy of Denis McQuail, of course, means talking about the history of his handbooks, the now 7 editions of his mass communication theory handbooks, and dating all the way back to 1969, when he published his first Sociology of Mass Communications. And you could argue that the formation of departments of media studies and mass communication and communication research, schools and academic units everywhere have a lot to do with, have a lot to be thankful for Denis's books that established our field, that gave cohesion, gave a grand narrative to a field that until that time existed, of course, in all kinds of different ways, but fragmented across countless numbers of disciplines as it is today. A second insight into this history has to be Denis's insistence on us taking responsibility for what we study. And for Denis, this responsibility could be found in assuming a normative theoretical stance towards our field, to articulate what it is that we're really concerned about. Why do we think something is good or bad and deserves our interest, our studies, our funding, our students' engagement? And I guess a third element that I would briefly want to touch upon is something that is truly remarkable, which is his insistence, and an insistence that I've tried to carry on with this new edition, to truly integrate, without privileging either or, the disciplines of the humanities and the social sciences when it comes to the study of media and mass communication. So whether it's quantitative or qualitative approaches, inductive or deductive approaches, whether we're talking about media studies or communication research, we're not separating them in the book. They're not separate chapters. They're not, well, the social scientists say this and the humanities say that. No, it is a truly integrated perspective, because that's what the world wants from us. That's what we need to truly make sense of our contemporary media environment, about the way we all must self-communicate and must communicate, if you will. You know, at the heart of Denis McQuail's legacy is, of course, this grand narrative of the field of media and mass communication research. And this is not a narrative of a single story, complete with perfect definitions of what communication is or what media are. This is a field of connections that Denis, in his inimitable way, wove together through various iterations of his book. A field or a story or a field of connections or a narrative that has its own history, and this history is important. The old theories apply to the new theories apply to the old. It is a story or a narrative or a field of connections with purpose, normative purpose. We have to articulate who we are and why we do what we do. The so what question has never been more important, and Denis has always shown us the way. And finally, I do think in this new edition and looking forward that the key, the heart of our grand narrative is, like I said earlier, convergence, collapse, hybridity, call it what you will. The key is that our traditional taxonomies of production, content and reception, of industries and audiences, of texts and materiality, and all those lovely categories that we've always been using are, it's not that they're not valid anymore, but they've collapsed into each other in our current media environment. And this calls for truly integrated, mixed, triangulated methods, perspectives, and ways of looking forward. And I'm really excited to be part of that narrative.